Imagine for just a moment that Earth suddenly slammed on the brakes and stopped spinning. Not forever, not even for a day, just for one single second. Sounds harmless, right? After all, what's a second compared to the grand timeline of the universe? Well, the truth is, 1 second would be more than enough to ruin everyone's day in spectacular fashion. Right now, as you're sitting in your chair, standing in line, or lying in bed, you're actually moving. Not because you're fidgeting, but because the Earth itself is rotating beneath you. At the equator, that speed is about 1,670 kilometers per hour. That's faster than the speed of sound. The only reason you don't notice it is because everything around you is spinning too. The oceans, the air, the cat sitting next to you, even your coffee mug. It's like being in a car cruising down the highway at 100 kilometers per hour. If the car is perfectly smooth and steady, you don't feel like you're moving. But slam the brakes, and suddenly everything inside that car flies forward. That's exactly what would happen if Earth stopped. The planet itself would halt. The ground, the mountains, the bedrock, frozen in place, but the oceans, the atmosphere, and every object that's not firmly bolted into the crust would keep hurtling forward at 1,670 kilometers per hour. In an instant, you'd be moving at jetliner speed without the luxury of a seatbelt. Buildings would crumble as their walls and windows couldn't hold against the massive lateral forces. Cars, trees, and unlucky pedestrians would be ripped from the surface and launched eastward like toys in a hurricane. The oceans would rise up into colossal walls of water, surging over coastlines and swallowing entire cities. The atmosphere itself would keep moving too, creating winds stronger than any storm in history, hurricane-force gales everywhere at once. In short, the planet would transform into a global-scale demolition derby. But let's zoom out for a second. Ironically, not literally, since zooming out isn't an option anymore if Earth has stopped. The chaos would depend on where you were standing. Near the equator, where the spin is fastest, the devastation would be total. Near the poles, where the spin speed is close to zero, the effect would be less extreme. If you were standing right at the North Pole when Earth stopped, you might just stumble, dust off your parka, and wonder why everyone else is screaming. For the rest of the world, however, things would not be so gentle, and the oceans, they'd try their best to obey physics as they always do. Water is stubborn. It doesn't like sudden changes. Imagine giant tsunamis sweeping across continents, erasing coastlines in minutes. Inland seas would form where none existed before. The Sahara might suddenly become a beach, but not the kind anyone wants to visit. Meanwhile, the atmosphere's momentum would shred everything above the ground. Skyscrapers, gone, forests, flattened, airplanes. Let's just say the pilots would be having the worst day of their careers. Humanity itself would face a new problem. Survival in a world where food supplies, power systems, and infrastructure are suddenly erased. The global economy wouldn't just collapse, it would disintegrate, quite literally, into rubble scattered across the landscape. Now, here's the good news, or at least the slightly less bad news. After that 1 second, Earth would resume spinning as if nothing had happened. The problem is, the damage would already be done. Once you've launched entire oceans across continents, you can't just sweep them back into the sea. The planet's ecosystems would be broken beyond recognition. Billions of lives would be lost. Civilization would be reduced to scattered survivors clinging to high ground, staring out at a drowned and battered world. But let's play with the idea a bit more. Suppose somehow humanity survived. What lessons would we learn? Perhaps we'd finally appreciate the gentle, constant spin of our home planet. Perhaps we'd hold conferences where the few surviving scientists try to explain to confused farmers why their cornfields are now underwater deserts. Maybe, in some bizarre twist, humans would adapt to a slower spinning Earth, creating new maps, new cities, and a new way of life on a planet that had briefly slammed its brakes and reminded us who's really in control. And if you're wondering whether this could actually happen in real life, the answer is no. Physics won't allow it. The energy required to stop the Earth's rotation, even for 1 second, is unimaginably huge. It's the kind of energy you'd expect from an interplanetary collision, or a direct strike from a rogue star. In other words, If you ever find yourself living through this scenario, don't bother filing a complaint with your local government. Something much, much bigger has gone wrong. So, what if Earth stopped spinning for 1 second? The short answer: everything not nailed down, including you, would fly eastward at supersonic speed. Oceans would turn continents into aquariums, and civilization would collapse in the blink of an eye. The long answer? Let's just say it's a very good thing Earth keeps on spinning, quietly, steadily, and without interruption.